Hi everyone, welcome to OLM community meeting. Today is 11th February 2025 and I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, Brett,
Watch
to break
out.
you, but okay. So we have okay, we don't have any demos today. Um, yeah, Anik is on icon PTO, but I would have asked him to do the demo of the thing which the endpoint we recently did, merged into the source code, but that's okay. We do not have any brief or RFC. Actually, we have a brief from um, Payer, but I'm not sure it's um, ready for for everybody to review it. But so Payer, if you are here and if you feel it's ready, please add your brief here so that other people can review it.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, it's already been through the first round, but I still need to address the comments, which I'm going to do tomorrow morning.
but do you
But
think
yeah, we can add it there. I don't think it's a problem.
okay.
I mean, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, please. Thank you. So we have this old action item which I was still working on. I didn't copy it because it looks so weird here. Every time we go through that, I think once we finish it, we'll talk about it. And then we have couple of discussion topics, and then we have roadmap check-in. So the first one is from Brett. Let me remove this line from here. Brett is about asking question about how do we want to work on PRs together. So topics that have been in the news, adding slash hold for a PR you are not owner of, allow maintainers to make changes by GitHub PR checkbox. What are maintainers' duties, responsibilities, hiding and resolving comment threads. So, Brett, I think probably you can add more context to this. Do you want to go ahead and talk about this one? Then we can have a discussion on this.
Yeah, I was mostly just bringing it up. I wonder if we want to have a sort of a maybe if we want to set up sort of a process where we go through and maybe come up with our define policies or however we want to look at processing PRs as a group. I think we're a large enough group, and we include a lot of people who are maybe not in our immediate team, that it's worth sort of formulating this stuff into a more of a policy. Um, I mean, one person might assume that they've got, as a maintainer, if they're listed in if they're listed in the owner's file, then they've got certain duties and responsibilities. Another person might assume different duties and responsibilities from that. Um, I was just wondering if we want to sort of, I also haven't done an extensive search to see what our prior art is on this. So if anyone's aware of that, they could chime in. But yeah, it just that what just these are this list is just some things that I noticed causing a little bit of friction on PRs, and I just wonder if we want to sort of have a I don't know where we'd put this, but something that we immortalize in the repos themselves, um, and can sort of refer to, like, we do this, we don't do this, just sort of a probably just a long listing of how we work with each other on PRs.
Right. So let's go through one by one, right? So adding hold for a PR you are not owner of. Is there anything? I mean, usually people don't add hold for a PR unless they find an issue or they want like something needs to be like maybe they're waiting for some other PR to get merged first and then to merge this PR, or there's some specific reason why a PR should not be merged. Then they usually add hold, and then when you add a hold, you should actually explain why you are adding a hold for, right? I mean, that's I think the generic expectation that like most of it's basically etiquettes, right? It's like you if you're adding a hold, you should explain why you're adding a hold. and somebody who is not agreeing that you should hold, that person can come and discuss that with the other person why that hold is not required, right? I have in the past probably have added hold to PR. If I want to really review something before the PR get merged, I go ahead and add a hold saying, I'm before end of the day, I would either review the PR or remove the hold either way, right? And then within couple of hours, once I do the review, I remove the hold because the idea is not to slow down the merging of PRs or like not to become a single point of failure or a single point of blocker. So that I have seen. Is there anything else you have seen, Brett, like you want to talk about? Like, do
Well,
you,
like, so for instance, if I was drafting something that would go into like a document of how we work together, I just changed that to be, first ask the PR, first ask the PR owner to add a hold. And that just simplifies the whole process because if we're all working together as, engineering professionals, if somebody asks you to add a hold and they have a decent reason, you just do it. Because some of our mechanics would allow like, it to sort of go back and forth. Like one person puts a hold on, one person puts a hold cancel. And it's sort of silly. It's a silly waste of time, like over arguing over a toggle switch. Um, and I just think it'd be better if we just had sort of maybe that's all we need is like a PR etiquette thing of just ask the person to put a hold on the PR and tell them why you think they should do it
yeah,
first, rather than just adding it, because that becomes a little bit, I think at least some people's view of that it becomes a little bit of a sort of a needless tug of war over something. Also, it's sort of, I mean, it's just one of many levers that we can flip on the way to merging because just simply withholding approval is fine too. If you think something's dangerous or badly done in the PR, you should just like not approve it. That'll also result in it not merging.
But
So,
so I think the danger here is that somebody thinks that something is critical enough that it should not go in regardless of what other people think, and that there should be a discussion. Um, and it, if you say, can you put a hold on this, the author may not come by and see it for a while, and someone else may come by and approve it, and it gets in. So I understand the concern, and there are purposeful mechanisms to prevent merging from happening. And I think we should not preclude ourselves from being able to use that, but we need to all be reasonable people too.
right, but doesn't that sort of go to like that goes to like the third thing of like the maintainer's duties? Like we should sort of enumerate what those are, and those I would think one of those is don't approve code that seems like a bad idea.
Right. And I mean, if you're going to put a hold on something, there should be a reason. You shouldn't just hold. When you say slash hold, you should give a reason about why you're holding it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those things like when you definitely if you're adding a hold to a PR, I think it's a fair expectation that you explain why you are adding a hold on this PR. And so that people who do not agree with you can actually come and talk with you or at least explain in the PR itself, respond in the PR itself, or anything which is you think urgent or just have a conversation with one-to-one conversation with the PR owner or whoever you want to talk to. It's just basically making sure that the communicating well with each other. I think that's the key part, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we're fine. Yeah, even if like I remember like if I add a hold to a PR for reviewing, I also mentioned like I'm adding a hold for a couple of hours and I'll come back and remove the hold after a couple of hours. And I've done that already. Like I've been doing for years now and people are okay with it. But if you don't agree with some code in the PR, then you can definitely put review comments saying asking for change. There are different options when you put review comments. And unless I'm like strongly feel something needs to be changed the PR, I usually just put comments. It's like when I put comment, that means it's up to the PR or not to change it. It's not a blocking issue. You can still merge the PR. It's not a big deal. Um, unless I feel like something is really big deal, I think we need to change. We must change something before merging. Then you put request for change, right? I mean, when you review it, and I think that's something I think everybody is following as far as I know. So that's another lever we can use to basically hold a PR if you don't want some changes to go in. And people are usually good with respect to seeing any comment and make sense. Yeah, sure. And we even like sometimes like I remember reviewing a PR and it looked good to me, but then I saw somebody else has reviewed. I think Joe had reviewed the PR in the past, and he has some review comments. I cross-checked his review comment. It's mostly addressed, but I was not 100% sure because I was not Joe, right? So what I did, I reviewed it. Even if I add LGTM, I said, I did a comment, Joe. I have added a LGTM, but I'm not merging the PR because I want you to come back and take a look, making sure you are fine with it, and then go ahead and merge it. So something like that. Like it's mostly like making sure respecting other people's view, like making sure the person has reviewed it, that person might have some feedback. So I'm just like, it's not a critical PR. So if I merge today or tomorrow morning, that's fine. It's not blocking anything unless it's critical, like something, code freeze or something like that. That happens exception. But other than that, it's mostly fine if you delay a couple of hours or like one day also. Like it should not be a big deal, in my opinion. Does it help, Brett? Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean that what you described sounds like a instance where like you should probably have you could just use hold yourself to reflect that situation. Um, it's a little different than someone, setting it for you. But um, yeah, that's fine. I think that's a good coverage of that.
Awesome. Cool. The next topic is so next one is allow maintainers to make changes. So I think anybody, Todd, anybody else, you guys want to talk about this because I'm not a maintainer yet. So probably some maintainers should talk about this one.
For which one?
The allow maintainers to make changes. Like how much what is the line where maintainers usually have access to make changes to the PS, right?
So I think, oh, okay. So what lot? I mean, I would, so that checkbox, yeah, allows other people, certain other people who are maintainers to modify the PR. I think that it should be very limited in what maintainers do. Um, so as the best, easiest example is that a it needs to be rebased in order to be merged. So doing something like that might be appropriate, or um, if it's something we really need to get in, like, close a business on a Friday and the person who is doing it, who originated the PR um, is in Europe and is now, you know, um, how can I say this is now, off hours. And so they're not working and there is something that we must fix in this to get it in. That'd be, those are the two types of things I could see that we might do. And the first one, the rebasing might be more common. The second one is that's more, I mean, that's more if for those who are red hatters and need to get something in. But I think that is not as a common case. I think the rebase case is more often common. So, but I mean, anybody else can feel free to chime in.
One of the examples what I have seen is sometimes when the review goes for a long time and maybe the maintainer want to suggest some code and maybe the communication is somehow is not working because of time zone or whatever reason. Sometimes maintainers suggest code, and I think that's a fair deal as well, right? I mean sometimes because if it's just review takes certain amount of time, so maybe to make it faster, maintainer sometimes like suggest some code changes, but usually it's like a mutual understanding in a way. So if you don't like a maintainer basically adding code to your PR, I think you should be able to express that and just say what you want, and I will do the changes. I think it's just basically communication and like how do you um like how much you want to allow maintainer to change your code also. Like if you're fine with it, that's great. Maintainers could change the code. But if you don't like it, then yeah, probably you should also communicate. But I think, maintainers usually have the last say of, whether the PR can merge or not. So anyway, we have to accept some of the reviews. Like it's a mutual, again, mutual discussion to accept or not accept. But as long as maintenance agrees with you, I think that's fine. That has been usual practice in most of the open source projects.
So I'll
Yeah,
probably say I'm a big culprit here, but more so in the downstream than in the upstream. But I generally agree with the um, guidelines that Todd put down. Um, so yeah, and where I'll usually also jump on a PR is if it's been sort of sitting there for, weeks or months and, it's stale, then I'll just go and try to do a rebase, maybe try and fix it and then contact the person to see if it's something that they still want to, you know, see through. But I just do that more as a, uh, just to be helpful.
Right.
But at the same time, like I trust all you guys, and if you need to jump onto my PR to go and do something, like I don't care. But I do understand that other people do, so I'll try and do that sparingly or only when it's exceedingly and obviously helpful.
Yeah, I know you've given me access to your repo, at least one of your repos, surprisingly.
Well, yeah, like I don't want people waiting like for 8 to 12, however many hours until I'm back just for stuff to move. Like it's all our code, right?
Right. Cool.
yeah, I think those are all reasonable reasons to allow the maintainer to check, to check off the allow maintainers. One thing I'm not sure that's covered by that is changing like the PR title and PR description. I don't think I'm not even sure if not checking it actually limits that out, but it is a little, I've heard some frustration from people about like changing PR titles. I realize that some people look at it and go, I'm making it more in line with what the code changes really are. But again, I think it's something that often needs discussion. People are sometimes authors of PRs sometimes are coming back to their PR and going, well, I don't even recognize this title as being what I worked on, type of thing.
I think that's more of an issue for downstream.
Probably.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I probably have added sometimes, like recently, I think Joe's PR where added a description, but the PR did not have any description, and I was like, "What is?" I'm trying to understand what's happening, and I asked him, and he explained me in a Slack thread. Then I basically copied his text into his description, and then he was okay with it. Like, yeah, that's fine. Um, just that, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I think changing a whole lot of description usually is tricky because somebody has written something and basically again should be mutually kind of agreed upon kind of thing.
I think we work all together, right? If he, like, for example, I edit the per description other day with a text to help him to just move and have that info track as well. I spoke with him. He was not mad. He gets that my intention was to help him. Like it was not a problem at all. For example, right? So I think if we don't like because we are like very that is my PR, is my description. I don't want to nobody change because I think that is bad. I think it's easy also ping the person, right? And say, don't do that. I didn't like, or why you did that, right? Expected the best intention because I think we all at the end of the day just want to get all PRs measured and have it tracked the information that can help us in the future.
Cool. Moving to the next thing is hiding and resolving comment
Oh,
threads.
just very quickly,
Yeah.
so because I have changed your PR title, but the reason I did it was because it was failing the job. So I would say that in that case, maybe it's okay for us to go and change it just to get the PR to move because I think it was already either it was just something really simple, and it was just missing a, emoticon in the uh, in the title. So again, like always, let's just try to be helpful and reasonable, and keep things moving.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's I think is definitely, in my opinion, should be fine because it's just like a emoticon change and because of which the PR is failing, right? I mean, I think that's expected behavior from maintainers, I would say. I think that should be fine. I don't know if anybody have, do you guys think it's not a, that's
May,
not fair?
maybe I don't know, but in other projects I saw that I don't know. But I think when we do a pull request, right? That stuff is from the project already, right? Because we gave the code for there, right? We don't have it's public, it's done, right? If you speak about IP, for example, we would not have more the IP of that, right? Like as a individual. So it's no longer ours. That is the point. I did a pull request. It's no longer mine, right? It's my contribution for the project. And if I leave the company, if I die, and if a bus hits me out, the code is there for whatever person wants to get that and do something.
Cool. So the next one quickly, hiding and resolving comment threads. Brett, do you have any? I'm trying to understand what
Well,
exactly.
this is the mechanics that GitHub offers you. Like, you can hide comments, you can mark them resolved. I think that's two separate items. Um, and it does sort of, I've seen some friction on PRs over this, where because if you hide or resolve it, you sort of closed out that discussion, and people can, again, this is like a war of toggle, of a war over some toggles, so people can unhide them, unresolve them, and can go back and forth, sort of wasting time. If we just sort of had a general purpose policy on it, it would probably save some time. Same thing as like, should you hold other people's PRs? Like just having some of these things codified in the repo of, with a policy, I think would save time rather than having, PR authors and reviewers sort of tussling over the different switches they can flip on the PR. It does sort of control, I can see that the downside of hiding things is it sort of then controls the conversation about the PR, and might sort of hide some things that the reviewer really wanted to keep in mind, as they did further review. And so if you're hiding or marking resolved, so it's again, I think one of those things where our etiquette should be, ask the person who maybe started the thread, or have both people agree that they're going to hide or resolve a thread, rather than just sort of going through and like hide, or resolve. I when I do work against somebody else's review of my PR, I tend to use those threads as work items. I'm using that as like my to-do list, essentially. So if somebody else comes along and hides them, it can be a little bit, they can sort of mess up that flow. And it generally, it's better to maybe let the person whose PR it is, just ask them to hide it or resolve it, because they may be looking through just to see if they are the last person commenting, to kind of see if it's done or whatever. But I think that the person who's doing the work to resolve the review comments sort of needs to be the person to actually mark those resolved, or to get them out of the way.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you, Brett. What you said.
I, I think that it came because one scenario, right? I put a comment. After 10 minutes, I realized that a comment was out of the blue. Island take my body, and made I write something that was was out of the scope. So, but the other person already answered below, right? So I make a comment, please ignore it. And as in the guide of the GitHub, I put hide out of scope, right? So I hide my own comment because I don't want to make like other person came there, but that is not it is, and start a discussion about something that I am as the author, I would say that is, please ignore my review, right? The alien take my body. So I think I think we don't usually hide so much comments, but I think it has one thing like in the documentation, right? The goal is you make it easier for others review, right? That is the goal of the PR review, make it easier for people reviewing the job. So in this case, I think it was fair. But if people don't like it, if people, each project can have its own rules, people can create, like we can define that we will do the things completely different of the word if that fits better for us, right? As well. No problem at all. I just would like to share. And I don't know how we do in this situation, right? Like if it's something completely out of date, should we keep our comment there forever and let others ping there and whatever and make it harder the review for the others?
Uh, well, just to respond to that before you go, Jordan, I would just say just like the rule might maybe just be to ask the person whose PR it is to hide or resolve the comment. Just like don't I don't know.
But
Generally, that would be my preference. Don't take action on the PR. I might be using that as a to-do item or something. Just ask me to do it.
but if the comment is yours, you made the comment and you are saying ignore it, that is completely out of the blue.
Yeah, if no one, especially if no one else is on that thread already, yeah, I think you could definitely hide your own comment. Yeah, definitely. Common sense there.
And speaking of common sense, what I was raising my hand to say is, back in the day, there was this lovely T-shirt, and this conversation reminds me very much of it. And it said, "All I needed to know, I learned in kindergarten." And it has to do with, walk. What is it? Hold hands while crossing the street. Take care of each other. Eat something if you're hungry. Little things like that. But central to it, and rather than being flippant, I think that the overall goal here is for us to be proactive with our communication and to try to be clear in our communications, right? So to take a couple of examples from the conversation here, I think we can achieve a general consensus that if you forgot to put a seedling emoji in your PR title, then other maintainer coming in here and making that change in order to allow CI to progress is not controversial. And for other things, if there's a question, then don't guess, ask the question. We have had new maintainers join us in the last while, and our styles are going to be different. It's going to take some active communication attempts in order for us to synchronize and get to a happy place for all of us. So uh, let's do a lot more asking and try not to do assuming, and I think we'll just be fine because we all have good intent here. All right, and now I'll take off my
And
cheerleading costume and yield the floor.
and I'll just add to that is that we should also be tolerant of each other's the mistakes. That mistakes are going to happen. We have a Git history. Everything is fixable. We don't have to lose our minds. Everything, every time something goes slightly off the ideal path. That doesn't mean, don't be mindful of what you're doing, but we're going to screw up every now and again, and maybe just we should try as much as possible to think as a team and to trust each other and to just accept that whatever was done, with the best of intentions, even if they're paving the road to hell, and just be tolerant and, as you said, communicate.
Yeah. No, I think all good.
So, yeah, +1 pair. The other thing I wanted to say, and I forgot to say, is that the direction this conversation is trending also looks like a really good segue to the next point, which is that lots of folks are having questions about responsibilities and I'll use the four-letter word authority. And I know we'd had some discussion previously on the topic of trying to establish some good contribution ladder documentation, learning from other projects. And I'm not sure where we went on this, if there's been any progress.
That's a good question, Jordan. I I also wanted to know I think we discussed last time, but we never gave any action item to anyone. And I think that's why let me search if we have anything.
Yeah, that I guess in my mind, when we're having these existential questions that I really like, don't get me wrong, I think they're useful, but the problem also is that we can spend a lot of time treading the same ground. It sounds like if we're not happy with the current contribution ladder documentation, I'm presuming that we have some, then we need to talk about that. And if we don't have good documentation, we should write it.
Yeah, so I think the discussion what we had last time, that we had a discussion and we kind of agreed that we already have this contribution ladder from our old projects, right? OLM V0 like SDK and everything, and we will mostly follow that. Um, I I think it's just that we had a discussion like saying let's go through that old contribution ladder and see, do we need to change anything there? I think that's the part kind of we wanted to do, like to go through it and have some kind of discussion probably. See everybody basically go through it and say this looks fine, just follow this. And I think that's where we were. So um,
So do we have an upstream issue in GitHub for what you just mentioned there, examining our other documentation and proposing, or either proposing that we adopt it as written or suggesting changes?
so I don't know. I don't know that. So this is one epic, um, which is created by you in December 10,
Yep.
2024. This is the one, I think. Yes. So this is the epic, I think probably.
But this is like a follow-on effort, right? Because the idea here was that there exist policy implementation controls for automation that allow us to implement and automate whatever our contribution ladder looks like, right? And we would like to find something that is independent of any particular vendor's infrastructure in terms of dependencies, right? And so this is really, once we figure out what that contribution ladder looks like, because like we're getting a bunch of comments right now also, which are really good, but they're ephemeral. And I think if we don't try to capture those somewhere, we're doing ourselves a disservice. But once we've done that process, right, we've created what we've agreed on what the contribution ladder should look like in detail and in whole, then we can move forward with the epic I wrote to try to automate that policy, right? Because the previous, like this epic is primarily concerned around the idea that Prow and Tide are ways that other vendors will control that aspect of things, but we don't have access to that as a CNCF project, and so we need some other approach. But this is the technical implementation of the soft, squishy thing that we define as a contribution ladder.
Hey Jordan, sorry I was muted. Um, I hope you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So I was saying, you mentioned about vendors have access to certain things and we do not have access to. some automation thing. I did not get that part. Can you please explain it a little more?
Yeah, so it's like it's on the paragraph that you have the cursor on right now,
Right.
right? So some vendors use Prow and Tide to implement or to automate the policy that's been decided by the project. But CNCF does not provide us with that infrastructure. So rather than use a vendor-specific infrastructure for a CNCF project, we'd like to find a non-vendor dependent solution. But this is kind of a red herring to the discussion of the contribution ladder, PR review policies, courtesy, and the like. This
Right.
just says whatever we decide on, we want to go automate.
Right. My question is, so I think what is the next action item for us? Is it that we just want people to go through the contribution ladder document and just point out, is there anything they disagree to or anything they want improved upon? And then basically collect the comments in this epic?
I don't know that it belongs in this epic. This was really, in my mind at least, this was going to be a few steps about how we look for tools, implement tools, verify that they are implementing the policy that we've agreed on, right? So this is all totally separate from establishing the policy. So I
Yeah.
guess what I'd like to see is for us to have a GitHub issue here, which is to do what it sounds like is an examination of the V0 policy documents regarding contribution ladders and either, I guess I'd be looking, so the primary thing I'm trying to get to here is lots of people asking questions. The way I'd like us to be working as a group of maintainers here is that we create an issue in GitHub, we make it available. If folks go, ooh, this is something I'd like to work on, it's right there. They can always look at the board or a runway or whatever for new work, and then they can start working with this. Yeah, so we can do this offline, right? We don't need to draft this in real time, but it just goes back down to if we don't have something that people can find to go do the work, then we need to have something so that we can start pointing to that instead of having the discussion over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I just wanted to create this link because put it here and feel free to edit the description. Anybody, so the action item is review the contribution ladder document and yeah, and discuss in this meeting. So I don't think we should put it in anybody. But maybe you can put it in anybody. Do you have a volunteer who want to do this and basically come back here saying it looks good or not? If not, then we can definitely find out. And a couple of people at least should review the document, and then we can rediscuss this again. And then review, basically if you have any comments or any feedback on the existing document, please feel free to add to the issue so that we'll have points to discuss when we discuss it next. Any comments, any suggestion on this? Cool. Thanks, Jordan. The next one is it's not it's a small issue relatively. So we are actually consolidating the code between all the internals. We have catalog D has an internal directory, and operator control has an internal directory. So we had this issue as part of the monorepo consolidation. If you want to see from this PR description, you can find the issue, and then we discussed these few things and we agreed upon. And then and I have a PR for this one, and you can see it's actually changing most of the internal directory files. And the challenge is because I should remove the work in progress, but then the challenge is it is because with the internal code is continuously changing. It needs like constant rebase. This is like a usual challenge with this kind of PRs, right? And I have to fix the lint. I don't know why it's failing. And then everything else is kind of passed here, right? Only the lint is failing. So once I fix the lint, which should not take much time, then we should be able to merge it. So I was wondering, what do you guys think about, like, can we quickly merge it, like review it, merge it on a priority basis, otherwise just it needs the constant rebase. So that's the thing, is it's not a big deal. I can try to keep up today. If it doesn't happen, then probably I'll ask for, like, can we pause for some time before we merge this PR? What do you guys think?
I'm fine with. I'm okay with it. Do you think you have the PR done already, like for we
Yeah,
review?
yeah, it's actually done for at least the operator controller, because there are obviously few more follow-up PRs. For catalog D would be a separate PR.
So if we do a review now in July, if it's okay, we just get merged
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it's fine.
yeah,
So
right.
I'll try to help you
Thanks,
after
thanks,
that.
Namita. Yeah, I think the lint is failing for some reason. I have to cross-check that, and after that, I think we should be good. Cool. So let's go to Gavin is adding something. Gavin, do you want to talk about your topic?
Rookie mistake. All right. So, um, yes, the only thing I wanted to mention was um, I don't frequent this meeting too often, but I did when I first started. And it was this we were rotating folks going through and seeing this meeting. Is that not a thing anymore, or am I just in a weird rotation when I jumped in this meeting?
I think there was a time when I used to rotate this meeting, probably before I started emceeing this meeting. I'm definitely open to like, rotate this meeting.
I
I
like the rotation aspect because more people had a chance to say stuff, especially folks that I rarely heard from in general. So, is that a thing that we want to do, or is that a thing that we don't want to do?
We definitely want to do. I think more people getting into rotation is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Do we have a rotation list?
We do not have a rotation list.
It
I
had
think
always
you're
been,
next, Gavin.
Go ahead.
yeah, you chimed in, Gavin. You're next.
I think you're next. I think you're at the top of the list.
For
It's
fuck's
usually someone who
sake.
volunteered. It was a volunteer. It's like, does anybody want to do it next time?
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's Todd mentioned a good point. So anytime, let's say you want to do the meeting next time, so what you do is you copy the template, right? You copy the template, put it here, and in the host part, you put your name. Then it's your meeting. Like, you can MC that meeting.
All right. I literally was not trying to do that. But
But
you
I'm
know,
gonna put you for
I'll
the
be a Huckleberry.
I'm gonna put you for the next meeting, Gavin, though.
Fine.
I'm kidding. Anyway, no, Phil, I think it's a good point. Gavin brought out a very good point. So, if anybody of you want to MC this meeting, you definitely are welcome. And
Yeah, I think the way we used to do it is there's actually an action item in the agenda, a regular thing at the bottom. It's like create the next agenda, find out who's gonna host next time, and make sure that what we recorded goes up, right? So those are like the template stuff.
right. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's all I had. Just trying to get that alive and kicking again.
yeah, cool. So I think what Jordan, what you can do before end of the every meeting, you can ask for anybody who wants to host the meeting next time, and that's all, right? And then somebody volunteers, then we can just put that person's name in the host for the next meeting.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way we used to do it. It'd be nice. It's nice to push some people. Um, some people are interested in running it, and they need a nudge, and so we need to nudge them.
Cool. Yeah, we can do that. We'll
Beauty.
start from today. So cool. So moving to the next one, which is roadmap check-in. Do you guys have I have one agenda, which is I think the monorepo phase 2 effort we're doing, which is currently here in the no status column. We already started working on this one. So it should move to actually implementing part. So that is one thing. Apart from that, I think the list is mostly, we already kind of gone through the list and kind of sorted this little bit in previous meetings. So if anybody have anything which they want to talk about to rearrange, then you can do that. So currently we have two epics which is implementing. One is, there is one in need docs part, which is catalog D web interface performance improvements. That's in need docs column. And then in the implementing column, we have permission validation pre-flight check, and then post monorepo integration phase 1. So basically this is phase 2. And then we have in the designing column, we have 1.0 performance and scale. And then next one is kubectl operator plugin updates for operator control and catalog D. This one is help admins determine necessary permission for bundle life cycling, and support registry v1 bundles that include CS with webhooks. And the next one is support watch namespaces via parameterization. So Pierre, the brief you did, I tend to believe that this is related to this epic, right? 593. Do you maybe
Yep.
it's related?
Kind of, yeah. I'll probably need to rewrite the description here, but essentially, yes.
So whom should we assign this epic? Is it
You can assign it to me for now. In the worst case, and when Thingy comes back, he can take over. Nico,
okay?
like the self fine.
And also, I think probably you can assign more people here, right? Just not one person. You can probably.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah,
Sweet.
cool. And I think
Yeah,
this. Go
I
ahead.
think the important thing, which might be worth communicating with everyone, is, there it says watch namespaces, because Registry V1 bundles had support for configuring the controller to watch multiple namespaces, but we don't want that in V1. So that was sort of intimately linked with the whole OLM V0 multi-tenancy concept that we will not be carrying over to V1.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I want people to walk away with. Multiple namespace? No.
Right. And I think one thing I did was like I moved this up like on top of webhooks, because I think this is currently in designing. Should we move this in designing then?
Yeah, might as well. Might as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Cool. So that's mostly our current dashboard for 1.x. So going back to our agenda, we have after the meeting started, I think we have two briefs got added to this meeting. So anybody wants to talk about these briefs quickly? so that it helps people to get little context and review it?
I mean, if you want, you can open mine up, and I can sort of very quickly go over it. So the background context is, yeah, in OLM v0, um, we would offer these four different installation modes. So all namespaces, multi-namespace, single namespace, and own namespace. So the distinction here is where does the operator get, the operator resources, where do they get installed to? That would be the installation namespace. And then which namespaces does the controller reconcile? So, and this would be the watch namespace. Well, in the v0 case, namespaces. So in own namespace, that just means that the installation namespace and the watch namespace are the same. So only CRs that are placed inside the namespace, the installation namespace, would get reconciled by the controller. And I think the idea here was cluster admins would, want to control, let's say, the blast radius of the controller, or where, certain things would get reconciled or be available to whom on the cluster. And the idea behind this feature is to bring over the single namespace and own namespace installation modes, as this is important for a few of the downstream customers, specifically telco. And the general approach here is, so I think coding wise, it's pretty much done. I have a work in progress PR upstream that sort of enables this in terms of the mechanics of generating the resources and where they get stamped out, that we already kind of had code for in the converter. Where the bulk of the work is going to be for this is we will have to um, update the cluster extension API to make this install mode or watch namespace or what have you, configurable at install time. So what we don't want to do is have a first class watch namespace um, field in the API, because we might want to target, different runtimes. We might want to install things that don't have anything to do with operators and so on. So the way that we're thinking about it is we'll probably update the API to carry some kind of opaque field where the configuration, the sort of runtime specific configuration would go into. So for OLM, so for registry v1 bundles, we want to configure the install mode. We also, going back to the v0 subscription, you could also specify certain, I can't remember if it were deployment or pod configurations, things like, affinity and so on, where they would go. And, in this kind of opaque, configuration field is where all of that configuration would eventually end up if we want to, bring it over from v0 to v1.
Cool. Thanks.
I think that's the general gist. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. In the interest of time, we're reaching very close to our time. So,
Oh, sorry. No worries.
thank you for your explanation. We have just 1 minute left. So, this is yeah. I see Edmund, Igor, and Yash and Sid. We don't have much time, but do you want to take just 1 minute and explain it a little bit?
I think Igor might be the best person to present on this. He mostly worked on the doc, but I've looked at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thanks everyone. We're reaching the time. Anything else before we stop the recording? Cool. We'll stop the recording now.